Welcome to another episode of the Productivity Show. My name is Tan. I'm the founder and CEO of Asian Efficiency, where we help people become more productive at work and in life. And today with me, I have my co-host, Brooks Duncan, the Canadian, as you can probably tell if you're watching this recording.
Hey everybody. So we decided to do a last minute family trip up to the Sunshine Coast, which is an area north of Vancouver. And I'm in a town called Powell River. And about 2 hours ago, I was on my paddleboard and there was seals popping up saying hi to me and that sort of thing. But I had to arrange somewhere to record the podcast. So I'm at this great co-working space called Coastline Collab. So for those watching the video, that's why there's a maple leaf behind my head. They were really gracious enough to let me use their meeting room. So really, really excited to be here and to have made it.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about how to organize your files, folders, and documents. So if you're excited about this topic today, then you're in the right place. But before we start diving in and sharing some of our information here, we always like to start off by sharing some of our favorite productivity resources as of lately. And I have 3 of them here for you here today. So the first one related to today's episode is called File Juggler. So this is an app for Windows. And what it does, it allows you to automatically organize your files, and it runs in the background. So you can have it set so anytime you download a PDF file that contains the word, for example, Asian Efficiency Invoice, it'll move it to the Asian Efficiency folder, and it will do this running in the background so you actually never know it happened. And the second resource that I recommend here is Hazel. This is the same sort of equivalent to the Mac environment. So it's the same feature set that it has, like File Juggler has. You can automatically move files, and it has so many more features. And so if you want to automatically organize your files, folders, and documents, File Juggler for Windows, Hazel for Mac, those are 2 tools that you will definitely want to look into. And the third one that I have here today is a Beet supplement. So this is a BEET supplement. It's a powdered crystal beet called Beet Elite. And I recently discovered this because I was researching how professional athletes in the NBA, which is one of my favorite sports, kind of like prepare for their games. And one thing I discovered is that a lot of professional NBA players, they use this supplement called Beet Elite to help them improve their performance and endurance during their games. And so I ordered this right away, and I remember getting it one night, and I tried it at night just to see if I actually would like the taste. And let me tell you, that was a really bad mistake because I had the worst sleep ever. I was just so wide awake. It was just, I had so much energy, I couldn't fall asleep. And so I recommend that you don't do that, but take it before a workout. And I do see significant improvements there. So recommend Beet Elite. So we'll have links to all of the 3 resources here in the show notes. So if you're listening to us in the podcast app, just swipe, you'll see it there. If you're listening to us somewhere else, just go to theproductivityshow.com/319. All right, Brooks, you and I are going to be talking about organizing your files, folders, and documents. So for those who are here, if you're brand new to just like organizing your files and you have stuff all over the place and you can't find anything, even if you can save your life, this episode will help you get organized. And if you already have a decent filing system, but you still have to dig around for things, we're going to show you some faster ways to get to your files and items that you need, and some ways to be more efficient at it. Or if you're someone who already has a pretty good information or personal information system or organizational system, we're still going to share with you some advanced strategies that we use. And it's always, I think, very helpful as well to learn how other people organize their stuff. So you can kind of learn how they do it and see if you can apply it to yours as well. Before we start diving in, I want to give you the floor, Brooks, real quick to talk about our new initiative that we just launched here at Asian Efficiency called TPS Plus.
Yeah, so TPS Plus, we announced it in the last couple episodes. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the members who have joined already. Really, really thankful that we've had a lot of excitement about TPS Plus. So if you go in your web browser to tps.plus, or of course, we'll have a link in the show notes to this episode, it's a special upgraded version of the Productivity Show. You get episodes ad-free. You get them a week earlier than anyone else. There's a whole bunch of other benefits that we've talked about. For example, you're able to participate in the recordings live. So our Dojo members and also our TPS Plus members record live. As an example, Haley is a member who has been with us recording live. She just shared that last episode, TPS319, we talked about decision fatigue, and she's already put some stuff from that episode into action. So she says, in an effort to minimize decisions, she now has a go-to mug and clothes to wear every single Wednesday when she joins live on the podcast. So yeah, TPS.plus, and we have if you join in an annual plan, not only do you save 2 months, but you also get a free t-shirt called One Tweak a Week. And that one has been actually quite popular. People are very excited about it. People were signing up just for the t-shirt, which is super exciting because it was a lot of fun making it. So yeah, thank you so much to anyone who has signed up so far. And if you want to learn more, again, you can just go to a web browser on your phone or your computer and go to tps.plus.
So for those who don't know, before Brooks ever joined Agent Efficiency, Brooks was kind of known as the paperless guy. Like anytime you wanted to learn how to go paperless and organize your stuff, people would go to Brooks for advice. And so Brooks, I think this topic of today is very important and relevant. And so I'm sure you've been asked this question many times, but why is it important for us to talk about this topic today, about organizing your files, folders, and documents?
Well, I think it's important because whenever we think about clutter, we usually think about physical clutter. And so when you have physical clutter, like your desk is messy, your home is messy, you've got things all over the place, it's pretty clear when you have a problem, right? You can just see it. You just walk in your room and you can just see that you've got a problem. But with digital clutter, it's more insidious. A lot of times you don't even realize you have a problem until you have a problem, until you're looking for something and you can't find it. And that's when you realize that, uh-oh, I've got a problem here that I need to solve. So we kind of want to get ahead of that with this episode and help you, give you some tools and techniques to get and stay organized so that you don't have this issue. Whenever you want something, it's right there for you, because you can waste a lot of time trying to find digital information. You're looking for email attachments. Maybe you downloaded like a certificate a couple weeks ago and now you need it, but you don't really remember what the name is. It just had the default name. Maybe you have different versions of your resume. If you actually pay attention to the amount of times that you're looking around for information on your device, whether it's your computer, your mobile device, whatever, it happens a lot. So the more you can get that nailed down and become efficient at it, the better off you'll be. The only thing about this is there can be the opposite problem as well, which means with physical stuff, there's only a certain number of ways you can organize things. Like, yeah, you can have different organizing methods in your shelves or something like that. But with digital, there's basically an unlimited number of apps, tools, methods, strategies for organization, and they become really, really easy to get these really complicated systems that take a lot of maintenance time. And we end up fiddling a lot, which is not what you want to do. So you want to have the balance. There's like a tension between being too organized and being not organized enough. And we want to kind of help you get to your sweet spot. And I've been thinking, as you mentioned, I've been thinking about this topic for a very long time. And it's funny, I captured this quote. I was listening to a podcast back in 2012. So this is going way back. The podcast is called Mac Power Users. I know many people who are Mac users or Apple users will be familiar with this. And it was episode 99. So this is a long time ago, 2012. And David Sparks, one of the hosts, said something which I thought perfectly described where we want to get to with this topic. And I captured it. And so when we were writing this podcast episode, I remembered it. So again, going back to digital organization, I pulled it up. And the quote was, "You don't want to spend any more time on the input side than is necessary to find it on the output side." Because when we're talking about digital organization, we're not organizing our stuff for the sake of organizing it. We're not doing it because we're bored and we have nothing else to do. I think the reason we want to organize our information is because we want to be able to find it when you need it. This is key. Whatever we're doing and everything we're going to be talking about today is in the service of being able to find this information when we need it, because information is useless if it doesn't have a job, if it's not going to do something for us.
I see this all the time with, for example, when I visit my parents and they go, Tan, I need you to help with something. Like I need this document and that document. And I go, okay, I believe, you've downloaded that somewhere, or I emailed it to you a while back. Could you check it? And then when I see them trying to pull up this document, I'm like 2 hours later coming back to them and saying, hey, did you find this yet? And they go, no, I don't know where it is. And I see this all the time on Zoom calls as well, when I'm on Zoom calls with other people and I ask them, hey, could you pull up this document? Then when they share their screen, like you see them clicking around, trying to find like, oh, is it in this folder, that folder? They open up different files and you go, oh my gosh, like it's actually painful in a way to see them struggle finding one particular document that we're talking about or that we need from, I don't know, 2 weeks ago to sometimes even 3 years ago. Where in your case, you have a quote from like 8 years ago or almost 9 years ago now, right? And so for me, oftentimes this is one of those things where once you pick up this skill, and again, this is a skill, being able to organize your information. Once you pick it up, it just pays so much dividends for the rest of your life. Being able to find anything you need right away. You'll save like seconds here and there, but also a lot of frustration and just like headaches. And so it's not one of those things where I think a lot of people will go, oh man, I'm really struggling with this. I should really learn how to organize my files. It's just, I think if you take the initiative, if you're one of the few people who will actually take initiative and get this squared away and really learn this for once, I mean, it literally takes like maybe like this episode, and we have like a course coming out on this topic as well. Like, and it's a relatively short one, so it'll be maybe an hour or two. Once you kind of learn it and you put it into practice, again, you will save hundreds and hundreds of hours for the rest of your life.
I'm actually glad you mentioned that about it being a skill, because I think a lot of times people, maybe this gets to like the whole growth mindset thing, I don't know, but people tend to think I am organized or I am disorganized. And it's just the way that I am, as if that's like a static thing, like a light switch. You're either organized or you're not. But this is completely a skill. You just learn some strategies, you learn some tools that will help make it easier. And it's something that anyone can implement. Even if you consider yourself disorganized, it's all about like having knowledge of what to do, but B, more importantly, taking action. So I have a question for you, just before we get into the tools. Like I thought it'd be fun to know, like, because I don't think I've ever asked you this, like where do you store things, like your documents, things you're working on, notes, random stuff, like just out of curiosity, Tan, where do you store your stuff?
I keep it really simple. So most things on my computer are stored in Dropbox. And so I actually have two Dropbox folders in that sense. I have one called personal and one called Asian efficiency. So I also have two essentially different subscriptions, essentially. One for my personal life and one for Asian efficiency, which is kind of work stuff. And so everything is literally on there. Like whether I'm recording something or saving a photo somewhere or storing in the invoice or whatever, everything goes in there except my downloads folder. My downloads folder is like its own little world on my own computer, but everything else pretty much goes in Dropbox. So if I have a document somewhere, I don't use the standard document folder that comes with most operating systems, whether you use Mac or Windows. I have a specific documents folder inside of Dropbox where I store my documents. So everything is essentially in the cloud. When it comes to my task or random stuff, it always goes into OmniFocus. So that's pretty simple. And anything that I consider long form or just like text, that goes into Evernote. And so I like that combination because Evernote and OmniFocus kind of work well together. And since I'm mostly Mac only, this all works together very nicely. How about you?
Yeah, I also use Dropbox for my documents, most things that I'm working on, like project documents, my kind of file cabinet storage documents, as I call them. I used to use Box for that, but a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to simplify things, so I switched over to Dropbox, and that's been working really well. For things that I'm writing, if I'm capturing, say, ideas for a podcast or a newsletter, I tend to save those in Ulysses, and that's where I do my writing as well. And also just random text snippets I have in an app called Drafts. And then, yeah, I also use Evernote and sometimes Apple or iCloud Notes for kind of those more, I don't know how to describe it, like transitional things, like maybe trip research and that sort of thing. I will have in Evernote, but that's mainly where it is. But the majority of my stuff that I work in is in Dropbox, and we for AE we'll be talking in more detail about how we organize things as well.
All right, so we have 3 rules to help you organize your information here today. So we're going to go through all 3 of them here today. And Brooks, do you want to start sharing your first tip here?
Yeah, so tip number 1 is to name the item, not just the folder. And so you might be wondering, what the heck are you talking about with this? So I will give you an example. So I'm sure we've all seen it, and maybe we've all done it. I've been guilty of it sometimes, and I've tried not to do it, where maybe you have a bunch of folders, and the folders are named okay. Like maybe you have like a client folder, and then a date folder, and then maybe you have an invoice, and you have it in like a month folder, and then but the invoice itself, the file itself, or the note itself is just called invoice, invoice.pdf or something like that. And that can be okay if you are looking through, or we might think that it's okay, because as you're looking through your folders or your whatever your organization structure in your app, your notebooks in Evernote, for example, it kind of makes sense because you're looking at the June folder for client XYZ, and you're looking at the invoice, so you know it's the invoice for this client for this date. So when you're visually looking at it, it might be okay. However, what we really recommend that you do is actually take the time, a little bit of time, to name the files as well, so that wherever they're stored in your filing system, you can tell what a file is by the name of the document, and it doesn't matter where it's stored. So as an example, giving that example, instead of having that file called invoice.pdf, maybe it would be 20, you'd have the date in there. So 2020-08-31, and maybe you'd have the vendor, so XYZ Corp invoice.pdf. So by giving that more useful name, first of all, you can see at a glance what it is. And this applies if you're notes in Evernote, text notes in Drafts, in a page in Coda or Notion or whatever, anywhere that you're storing stuff. It doesn't really matter the platform, but by having a more useful name, our mutual friend, Brett Kelly, I saw him once, he used the phrase, think of your future you. So think about it in like 5 years from now, when you're looking for this thing, give it a name that you will be able to use to find it. And we get into the nitty gritty of organization. We have a blog post called The Most Effective Way of Organizing Your Files, Folders, and Documents. So that's linked in the show notes. But I really wanted to give you that tip to think about at the individual item level what it is.
I think this is really important because it's one thing to see a file called invoice.pdf and go, oh, what is this? Because logically you could say, well, Brooks, I can just navigate to my folder and then I know where this file is. And that is technically true, but I think I always like to follow the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, right? So the whole idea is if I look at something, I want to be able to know right away what it is. Don't make me think is another common phrase I always like to say. Don't make me think about something. And so when I'm seeing a file called invoice.pdf, it could be many different things. And if you ever do like a search in your or on your computer, whether it's on the Mac or on Windows, and you search for like, let's just say invoice, as an example, then you might see multiple files called invoice.pdf. And you go, okay, which one is this? Like, and then you have to go through multiple files, right? So by naming them, not just the folder, but the files itself as well, you make it really easy for your future self to go, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is an Amex credit card statement from 2020. Or this is a gas bill from 2016 that I need to dig up or something, right? And so you can apply this to many other different types of things as well, not just files. You can do this for meeting notes. You can do this for other things you store, for example, in MVAlt as an example, or Evernote or Notion or Coda or whatever tool you use. It's not necessarily so much about the tool, it's really about where you store information and just naming things more appropriately, I guess, rather than just using one word. So a flip to this would be to say never name files with just one or two words. That's another way to think about this. And if you can, put a date on there as well, because it makes it easier for you to find stuff over time and to kind of reference things, but also to sort things as well. That if you have to sort photos as an example, having dates in there, especially if they start with year, right? So 2020 or 1999, that makes it easier to sort things and organize stuff as well. And if you want to go a little bit more advanced, I would highly recommend using like tools such as a text expander to make this really easy for you.
Yeah, my general naming convention, and you're absolutely right. It's the strategy you use, not the tool. So for almost everything that I do, my general naming convention is very simple. Like you said, year dash MM dash DD, and then the description. So my personal American Express bill, you use that as an example, would be, like I said, 2020-08-31, amexpersonal.pdf. If I had a meeting note with Tan about podcast planning, it would be like 2020-09-28 TAN podcast planning meeting. And again, those are in two totally different tools. We're going to talk about that in a bit, two totally different tools, but the naming strategy is the same. So I always know how to look for things.
So my other tip that I want to share with you is to think about the benefit of this, but also there's almost like no disadvantage to naming files with multiple keywords. Whereas there is a disadvantage when you have really short names for files, right? So there's almost no advantage to having a file called invoice.pdf. There's only disadvantages really. But there's a lot of advantages when you have it named such as 2020-09-28 American Express credit card bill or something like that, right? So I wouldn't worry about storage space or anything. There's no such thing when it comes to naming files. You can go as long as you want. So I would say be creative. Go whatever makes it easier for you to search for this. That's how you should name it. And typically what I recommend is whatever first comes to mind, that's how you should name it. So that's a really pro tip there. So if you're thinking about, oh man, when should I name this, American Express or Amex as an example, like there's two ways to look at it. Just whatever comes to you first, or what is something that your future you would type in or use. So for you, Brooks, I know you like to use Amex, whereas I might say, oh, you know what, I would actually search for American Express. I like to type in my stuff in full length. So everyone's a little bit different in that sense. And I know with, organizing a lot of files right now, that might be kind of a pain. So if you want to automate some of that stuff, we actually have a course called Digital Declutter that helps you declutter your downloads folder and your desktop in 15 minutes or less, even if you have thousands of files. So I highly recommend you check out that course if that's you. And we'll have a link to that course as well in the show notes, so you can go check that out. So again, that's tip number one. Name the item, not just the folder. All right, let's move on to tip number two here, Brooks. And what is that here?
Yeah, so tip number two is to be simple but intentional. So what do I mean by that? So people tend to create, I've seen it multiple times. I know a lot of us listening will definitely relate to this. You tend to overcomplicate our folder systems. We're afraid of not being able to find something. So we want to make more and more subfolders that are more narrow, so that we think, oh, it'll be easier to find things because there'll be less files or notes or whatever we're talking about here in one folder, it'll be easier to find. The only thing is, once these big, deep hierarchical folder structures get level after level after level, it just takes it too long to dig around to find the things that you're looking for. And also, we don't really think about this, but it takes too long to save things as well. When you are saving something, then you have to like click around, you have to think which folder it goes in or whatever your organizational unit is. It just takes longer, and that little bit of extra time really does add up. We talked about decision fatigue last week, so decision fatigue can come into play of trying to figure out where the heck you're going to save these things that you're working with. So choose a very simple organizational structure that means something to you. We gave an example of the one I use in that blog post I talked about earlier, the most effective way of organizing your files, folders, and documents. So I gave an example of the organizational structure that I personally use, but you'll see that that's what works for me. What works for you is going to be different, so it's hard to give like a standard system that you should use. One thing that I will say is I've been fascinated by the advice. A couple of weeks ago, Tan, I know you talked to Tiago Forte, who was on, I believe, TPS319. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes. And some of his advice I think is really interesting when it comes to organizational. So number one that he says is key is to make sure actionable items are separate from non-actionable and actionable. I think that's really, really good advice. You have your reference stuff here, and you have the stuff that you're working on here. So I think that's great advice. And then he has his PARA method, P-A-R-A. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. But PARA, and he talks about it more in that blog post, TPS 310, but I definitely wanted to reference it. So it's organizing anywhere in whatever system you're using, and it's transferable between your files that you're saving, your notes, your tasks. It's an organizational system that you can apply anywhere, and you organize it by, the P is by project. So things that you're currently working on that has a defined date. By area of responsibility. So these are things in your work and your life that the general area of responsibility. Number 3 is resources, and number 4 is archive. So when you're done with the stuff in the other 3 categories, you just move and it doesn't apply to you anymore. You just move it to the archive section. And I really like that because, like I said, it's defined but flexible, but it also can be applied everywhere. So it makes it really transferable. So I don't personally use it. I've been kind of like watching it from afar, but I think it's a fascinating strategy.
I know a lot of people, when it comes to organizing notes and information, are all about stuff like Dropbox, Evernote, Notion, Roam. Coda is kind of like the new kid on the block as well, which I personally like a lot. It's something I would recommend to a lot of people. But it comes with a little bit of a warning, because it's so easy once you get the new tools to start fiddling around and just like playing around with it and putting stuff everywhere. And it's kind of like when you have a new MacBook or a new computer and you want to start from scratch, and you start to go, okay, you know what? I'm going to start organizing everything from scratch. So I'm going to create all these folders. I'm going to create like 3 levels of folders, one for American Express, one for credit cards, one for 2020, one for January, right? 2020, February, 2020, March. And then, you can go like so many layers deep. And what I have always found is that the simpler or the flatter the structure, the easier it is for you to find stuff. And so I think another way to think about this is just the simpler your structure is, the simpler or quicker you can access something by just clicking around, the more likely you will find stuff as well. So instead of just continuously clicking through folders, right, which might be like 4 or 5, 6 layers deep, you can probably compress it into just 2 layers at most. And I think that, to me, is really sufficient for most things. So we use this, for example, even in Jira or in Confluence. Most things are like in a space. So we have a specific space for something. And then there's usually like 1 layer there of whatever you need related to that space. And so whether that's Evernote or something else that you use, I would highly recommend just keeping it as simple as possible and as flat as possible as well.
I'm glad you mentioned fiddling because this is something that is so hard to resist when it comes to organizational structure and where we store our information. It is so easy to spend just all of our time or a significant amount of time messing around with our system and not as much on the stuff we're actually supposed to be using this information for. This is one reason why I personally, and I'm not giving this as advice, I'm just saying that this is me knowing myself. This is one reason why I've been resisting tools like Notion, for example, and is nothing to do with Notion at all. And we even have a course about it in the dojo. If you go to theproductivityshow.com/dojo, we have a course up there about Notion. But the reason I personally haven't used something like that is because I don't trust myself not to spend all my time watching YouTube videos. And there's some awesome YouTube videos. So again, not saying there's anything wrong with them, but for me, myself, I just don't trust myself not to spend all my time fiddling with my Notion system. So for me, it's easier and I think more effective for me personally to just sit that one out and just refine and make my system as rock solid versus trying to jump to something else.
So we have a course coming out on this very topic very soon. We're going to show you how to efficiently organize your hard drive, name your files, structure your folders, and so on. So it's going to come out sometime later 2020. So if you want to stay up to date on that, subscribe to our newsletter. Just go to asianefficiency.com and subscribe to our newsletter there. And we'll send you an update once this course comes out. And we're going to show you like on screen how we organize our files, folders, how we name things, best practices, naming conventions, and so on. Some of the stuff that we talked about today, but we're actually in a more practical level as well. And if you already are a Dojo member, you definitely want to check out the DTDT that we did, the Do the Damn Thing on personal automation. So definitely go check that out as well if you want some more resources on this topic. Right, so that is, again, tip number 2. That is to be simple but intentional. So let's move on to tip number 3 here, Brooks. And what is that?
So tip number 3 is to use the right tools for the job. And I wanted to mention this because earlier when Tan and I were talking about the systems we use, the places we work with things, I know some people will probably thought to themselves, that just seems like a lot of different places for information. And this is a question that comes up a lot on the podcast and in our community as well, in the dojo, is people saying like, isn't it better to have all your stuff in one place versus having a bunch of different places to search for information? And that's everyone's dream, right? Everyone's dream is to have one tool that just does everything. Notes, tasks, long-term file storage, collaboration. And that's the appeal of things like Notion and that sort of thing, or maybe Coda, is like having a place for everything. I definitely think, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this, Han, but I definitely think that you want to consolidate as much as possible. Like you don't want to have a million different tools, but for me, it's better to have a few tools that do things really well than one tool that does a bunch of things and some of them poorly. I'm not saying that's Notion is like that at all. I'm just saying for me, it's better to have a few best of class tools versus kind of an everything bucket. So that's why I use a few of the different tools that I use. I use Dropbox for some things, but I also use a task manager for other things and a note-taking app for others. That's for me. And I'm curious, A, on a personal level, but B, because many of the Asian efficiency systems were implemented before I came. What were your thoughts of, for example, like we use Jira and Confluence for our project stuff, those are Atlassian tools, but we don't generally store project files in Jira or Confluence. Those are generally in Dropbox. So what were your thoughts on this concept of having everything in one versus a few different tools?
Yeah, so if we look at our tech stack on the back end, we have Jira, which is our project management tool, Confluence, which is kind of our information storage place. So think of it as like an internal wiki. So we store like SOPs or standard operating procedures there. Meeting notes are in there. Flow charts of things, blog posts of people, daily to-dos of people are in there as well. And all sorts of documentation is just in there. And so the beautiful part of this integration is that it's created by the same company, Atlassian. So there's a lot of native integration there. But the thing that they kind of suck at is storing lots of files. If I had to store 5 gigabytes of video files somewhere in Confluence or Jira, we would probably crash the system. And we would probably be paying a lot more as well for storage compared to going to something like Dropbox, which is a company that specifically specializes in storage and how to share files and so on. And so for us, it was kind of like a no-brainer when we looked at this. One, because it kind of works together anyway. And when it comes to storing files in the cloud and being able to share them quickly with our vendors and contractors and people outside of the Asian efficiency team. For example, if we had a new course filmed, we had the files in Dropbox, but then we needed to ship them out to, for example, to our video editors, right? They could easily access that stuff in Dropbox because they would use that tool as well, or that particular platform, but they wouldn't be using something like Jira. So we would then have to add them as another user in Jira, which would be more expensive. And then we have to pay for, storage pricing as well, and so on. And so, so there's a part of it is a cost factor that plays into this, but also just for the most part, honestly, it's really just the convenience factor as well. It's just really simple. It's much easier to share stuff. And that's the one thing that they specialize in, right? Dropbox only focuses on just making sure we can store your files quickly and efficiently and being able to share them with people quickly and efficiently as well. And the good thing is it all works together. That was a really important component of it as well. That's why personally, I'm not a huge fan, for example, of Google Drive, even though Google Drive does a lot of the same things. When it comes to like native integration with a lot of computers, at least back in the day when we made that decision, Dropbox was just way far ahead compared to where Google Drive was.
Yep. And the one thing that it's funny, one thing I definitely wanted to talk about, and in the podcast or in the live recording, Giacomo, who's a member, shared, is one thing he does is he stores his files in different places, but he makes sure that he has a way of referencing from the different systems. And this is what's really, really key. If you are going to go the way we did, which is having your stuff in different systems, you want a way to be able to link them together. So if you're using web-based tools, this often is very easy. You can usually get a URL that you can link to for another system. So for example, all of our podcast show notes are in Google Drive, but our project management system is Jira, as we mentioned. So what we do is we make sure that in the planning for these podcasts, we have a link straight to the Google Drive. If we have files on Dropbox, same thing. We're talking about them in one of our systems. The files are stored in another system. We make sure there's a link from our project management system directly to that file in Dropbox. So we don't have to ask somebody to go search for something. It's always one click away. And to me, that's the secret sauce of being able to link everything together, is this ability to have reference links between different systems. Without that, having different systems can become challenging. But once you have that, it's almost like having everything in one place.
So if you are someone who uses specific tools like that, specifically Notion and or Coda, if you're a Dojo member, we have created courses on those specific tools. So if you're a Dojo member, just go check out the Notion course that we have and also the Coda course that we have. If you want to check out the courses that we have in there, but you're not a Dojo member, just go to theproductivityshow.com/dojo and sign up to be a member today. You can get access to those 2 courses that we just talked about Notion and Coda, and all the other 40 plus courses that we have inside there as well. All related to productivity. And one of them is about naming conventions and organizing files as well. But we have so much more also about Evernote and other tools and other productivity topics as well. So you're going to get access to so many courses. So definitely go check that out at theproductivityshow.com/dojo. All right, so let's move on to tip number 4 here. This is actually a bonus tip. Originally, we were planning just to go with 3, but when we were creating the notes, we thought, you know what? This bonus tip is really useful as well. We want to make sure we share this with you here. And I know, Brooks, you're a big proponent of this thing. I know you talk about this a lot internally, but also on the podcast. So please share this gift with everyone here.
So anybody who knows me and knows I'm going to be on this podcast knows that at some point I have to talk about search when it comes to being able to organize your information and find your information. And I touched on it earlier. That's the goal for what we're doing here. The reason we're organizing our information is so that we can find it later. And sometimes finding it means clicking through folders or Evernote notebooks or pages in Confluence or Notion or whatever. That's one way to do it, which is totally fine, and I do that too. However, in most cases, the fastest way to find information is to search. And almost any tool that you're using, if not any tool, will let you search to find what you need. And almost always, there's some sort of keyboard shortcut that will let you do that. And obviously, it's different if you're using a mobile device. Although if you have an iPad and a keyboard, external keyboard connected, a lot of times you can use the same search keyboard shortcuts as a normal platform, as your desktop computer. But whatever you're using, like for example, Windows S, if you're in Windows, that will open up search, which you can use to find files and information. Command space will let you search for things on the Mac. Command O will open your projects and contacts to jump to it right in OmniFocus. Control Shift N or Command J will let you jump to things in Evernote. / will take you to the search in Confluence. You kind of get the idea. Whatever platform you're using, chances are there's going to be some keyboard shortcut and some ability to just type in words. And a lot of times it will search not just the name of the information. Let's say we're talking about documents. It will search not just the name of the document, but also the text inside the document as well. So it becomes really, really fast to find what you're looking for. So we've been referencing a number of Dojo courses. Just want to give one shout out. I think it was actually the first thing I ever made for Asian efficiency way before I joined the team. And it's a course inside the dojo called How to Become a Search Ninja and Quickly Find Everything You Need. So if you're a dojo member, you can check that out. And almost everything I do on my computer is search-based. So if I'm looking for something, I'm almost always using like Alfred or Spotlight to find it. Same thing if I'm on my mobile device on iOS. I very rarely will go to launch an app unless it's on the home screen by swiping and tapping. I'll usually just swipe down, start typing it, and then launch it that way. And so for me, I'm like a super search nerd. I totally accept that. But even if you don't want to be a super search nerd, just applying some of these strategies will make it your organizational, the inputs you put into your organization a lot more powerful. And like Tam was saying about the little bit of time you spend organizing your stuff will pay off for years and years and years. Same with search. Learning how to search your platforms will pay off for years and years and years as you become more efficient accessing your information.
So for me, I always find that if we can navigate to something, it's a good starting point, being able to know, okay, if I click around, I know where to find something because it shows some level of organization. But I think if you can add a level of searching skills on top of that, if you have good naming conventions for your files, it just gives you another level of superpower that you just unlock in your life. So I remember, even though I've been using OmniFocus for many years, I think you mentioned off the cuff one time to use Command O in OmniFocus. And I went, oh my gosh, my mind was just blown. I like normally I would use my mouse to go to the search, field and then type in something to be able to find stuff. But once you mentioned Command O, I was like, oh, I almost wanted to swear, but I was like, wow, like I really needed this, and I didn't know I needed this. So Command O really helped me a lot, and I've seen this true to be. I've seen this true. I've seen this to be true too for people on the Asian efficiency team when we record our team trainings and we talk about Confluence and Jira, and you start to share some of the keyboard shortcuts that you learn over time. Like I've shared, like, the forward command. Back in the day, it was GR, which was Go Recent, and would show you like a pop-up box of all the recent files and papers and documents you've accessed recently. That was a big game changer for a lot of people. And so just learning maybe 3, 4, 5 keyboard shortcuts of the tools that you use for searching makes it really powerful for you to kind of like level up there. And so if you take the ideas that we talked about today, plus add some searching skills, again, it is a skill on top of that, I just know that you're going to be extremely agent efficient. So definitely go take that on if you want to have another challenge to take on.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is that's the good thing, but the danger of when you're in an organization and you share your screen to do demos and stuff like that, other people will in a very friendly way offer some slightly better ways to do things. So whenever we're sharing something, either Tan or myself or one of the other team members will give some suggestions on more efficient ways to do that. And usually it's sharing a keyboard shortcut.
So again, that is the bonus tip here, is whatever you use, learn to search ideally with a keyboard. So as always, anything we do at Agent Efficiency and at the Productivity Show, we want to make it simple and actionable. So anytime you read our blog posts, go through a podcast, go through one of our courses, we want to make sure that we distill it in a way that you can take action. So if you made it all the way till the end here, what I recommend as the next action step here, based on what we talked about here today, is to look at your tools that you use to organize your information and ask yourself, are you using the right tools for the job? Is there anything that you can consolidate? Or are you suffering with a bad feature and maybe you could split it out with a better app? And I think if you start using the right tools, that will be a huge game changer for a lot of you. So don't fall for the one app does everything perfectly. I think the approach of using the right tool for whatever you need is something that I want you to explore here today. And if you want some extra help, I have some really exciting news here. So on October 6th, we will do a live session, a live training on organizing your files, folders, and documents. So we are actually going to share our best practices. We're going to walk you through on screen virtually how to organize files, folders, and documents. So this is part of our monthly Do the Damn Thing call that we do as part of the dojo, which is a private community that comes with coaching, mentorship, and accountability. So if you are a dojo member, you will get an email from us to sign up for this. Again, it's on October 6th when we will do this. And if you're not a dojo member, but you want to join this live training that we're doing, where we're going to show you how to organize your files, folders, and documents, by the end of the hour, you will have an organized hard drive, an organized system in place. And that's really exciting, right? So if you want to be part of that training, go to theproductivityshow.com/implements. Again, that URL is theproductivityshow.com/implement. And if you're listening to this afterwards, you can get access to the recordings if you are a dojo member. So just go to that link, sign up, and you'll be able to get access to the recording of that training as well. And also, if you want to get access to all the links and stuff that we talked about today in today's episode, just go to the show notes of today's episode by going to theproductivityshow.com/319.